Welcome to Higher Frequencies.
Where do you go every time you leave? Why do you always gotta go somewhere away from me? I keep wondering if someday you'll just keep holding on. And like a fool, I just keep waiting till the hurry comes.
If you could find your way back home again, I hope you can find your way into my arms again.
Howdy, folks. We are back. Finally. 9 months later. And where to begin? It's been a wild time of my life. And well, it's hard to know where to begin. And part of me wants to get into, right into the most challenging parts. It's been very challenging. I've gone through more layers of my awakening than I could possibly imagine, and had more profound experiences than I could imagine, and battled just about every demon that I could imagine. But we'll get into that, and I'll talk about it, but I want to set it up because I'm trying to, there's a reason why it's taken me a long time to get back to this. And yeah, I needed to give myself, I needed the space, and I needed to heal from it. And I needed to get my voice back. And, but here we are. And so I'm just going to get back into the story. And where we last left off was I was just getting ready to go to Spain. But I had some profoundly interesting experiences before I left, and I wanted to talk about that. And so again, I was, back in the house. I just started using the mushroom again, and had this really incredible experience. These couple experiences of just tapping into this higher version of myself, this future version of myself, this alternate version of myself, and being able to just have profound clarity and confidence and power, and yeah, it could just to, I think, ultimately, I think, to help me with the courage to keep going through this whole process, and to give me the strength to know why I'm doing this, to know why I'm deep diving into these realms of consciousness, and that it's not just, it's not something that I'm just doing on a whim, and that I want to be just doing psychedelics. Well, I wasn't at this point, but yeah, that I want to be just doing psychedelics all the time. It's understanding that it's me understanding it, and where we're going as a collective, and that this work involves, dealing with, collective consciousness, and for me to gain more understanding and awareness, to walk towards that higher version of myself, to me to fully understand. And I mean, because that's what I've been doing the last, 5 to 7 years, is, since my awakening, and since, I guess more so, yeah, something like that, maybe 5 years, but And since I started the Gene Keys, and all of this work was just really refining myself, refining my being. And then once I kind of stopped working, even before then, all the research and everything I've done is just figuring out what consciousness is, and how to live more freely, and how to be, the best version of myself, and what the true nature of reality is. And that I began to understand, it's like there was a reason why I was an accountant. There's a reason why I can go into these, corporations, and could take this pile of mess, and just, pile of garbage, and figure out, exactly how their system works, to exactly how it all flowed, to develop, to design, to test, to boil it down into a 10-page document worth like $20,000. Because it's like that's the way my logical mind works. And it's like I'm a, it's it, I'm a, it's a my left side of my brain is, was very logical, very understanding, very thorough in being able to weed through a plethora of stuff and find a solution. And then through this process of the last 5 years or so, being able to connect to my right brain through creativity, through the Gene Keys, working with the dream arc and animals, connecting to nature, and finding ritual and what my sacredness is, and I'm finally starting to merge, and then completely leaving the left hand side of the brain, and just really trying to tap into that. Find flow state, find easy is right. The slower the go, the faster you get there. Let go of this crazy, like, productivity train where I feel like I need to work, 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 and to do all these things, but really I'm running around stressing myself out and creating more problems as I go, because I'm not doing it with clarity. I'm acting without being fully conscious and having my awareness fully intact. And that, that's happened a lot again in the last year or two, where just as I'm learning, getting excited, and going through these things very, very quickly, that it's and too quickly, and learning my mistakes along the way, of like, the slower you go, the quicker you get there. And that by having a little more patience and time with myself, I could have made this a lot easier for myself. But that there's everything that happens for a reason. This is, again, what I've really been tapping into over the last 6 months or so, is the paradox of everything. And that's where I always say the line, there's no good or bad, there's no right or wrong. It's like hot and cold is just one line of one thing, and one doesn't exist without the other. And what I'm experiencing, and I think what a lot of us are experiencing, is our consciousness is expanding, as our awareness expanding, as we're getting more, that paradox is like growing. It's getting larger and larger to be, for me, especially experiencing that, just being a whole cast of characters. There's a reason why there's the tarot, right? And all of the different archetypes, from the lover, the magician, the king, the warrior. Those are the divine masculine ones that I've been trying to step into, getting out of this lower, shadow frequencies of that, and finding my divine masculine, and while merging with my right brain with the divine feminine. And that it's, consciousness with all of this information is just never ending. But there's a reason why I love it. And there's a reason why I'm trying to put this kind of cosmic puzzle piece of myself, and of understanding, how all the pieces work together. And it's to talk about it, it's to share it. And I'm finally at that point where, uh, it's making sense, and my voice is there, and I'm getting, this wisdom is just like, and just I was dying, and it really hurt me, actually, to because I had so much fun with the podcast, and I was like really humming with it, and loving it, and but then I had some experiences, some trauma that I created in my life, and we'll get to that. But I have a lot of stuff to talk about leading up to that, but it will set the scenes, and hopefully allow me to explain that, and to give myself some grace, and honor myself. And because it's been a hard thing to do, knowing what I've been through, and knowing that I should have known better, and feeling that I could have done better. But could I have? I'm not, I could have. I could have, for sure. Um, but then I'm always doing my best, and so are all of us. And, so coming to that, being able to come to that self forgiveness and that love and greater understanding, and that I had to sort all this out before I just start blabbing about it. And, heck, even, but it's part of it. And it's really interesting. And, to get to that point in my awareness, because even looking at the last two episodes that I have, I'm like, oh my God. It's like talking about the dream arc, just cursing like a sailor. But again, it was just so passionate. I told the story the best as I could in that moment. And then the next one was just like, again, I can see the arrogance, and I can see the childness, and I can see giving me energy to a thing that I don't want to. But anyways, I don't want to, not to try to backtrack on that, but just having this new, again, it's like levels of awareness where you have this a little bit of awareness of seeing it and not liking it and being like, oh, embarrassed, and like, I don't want to share that. And then you get the awareness over that of like, well, no, that's just part of my journey. And it's like, then it's funny, and being like loving it and being like, oh, I'm so happy I was able to, to go out and just to share these things anyways. And then now to be, it's just part of my story. And that I actually wish that I kept going through this journey, because I mean, that's what that's what my sage Richard Rudd talks about, is like, we don't have to wait to heal ourselves to start sharing, is that we're sharing through the wound. And I'm still in the wound stage. I'm still going through periods of transmutation, of taking this energy and, turning it into my pot of gold. And but I cannot wait any longer. And that's really most of the pain that's inside of me was just is this repression, this like, and that turns into shadow frequencies, or it just builds up, and it's just not healthy. So I am very happy to be back, and I was at least, been able to kind of write some music and do some poems and some stuff, and again, a lot more of my reading and diving into this stuff. And that's a very creative process too, and deepening my art of contemplation, which is really, that's it's got to be a whole nother episode. And did I mention I was going to talk about the story, because I might never get there, but um yeah. And then here I am, and just ready to, hopefully ready to rock and roll, because I have a lot to say about a lot of things. And well, let's just get back to the story. So yes, I just gotten back into the mushrooms, having these profound experiences. And I had another one before I left, this time on 3 grams of mushrooms. I was getting ready for Spain, and I just wanted to something, again, I don't, at that point in my journey, I was just getting back into it and just following my intuition, and knowing that there's something more here to uncover, and that they were gifting me these experiences for a reason, to start walking this path of being, this, again, a shamanistic journey of, through the unconscious, through my unconscious, and bringing it to light, to be able to really step into this, different version of myself. And that was, and it's a crazy thing to kind of do, but that I kind of knew I was born for this, or prepared for it, and that I could handle it until I couldn't. Um, but yes, and so one of these experiences that I had before I left was, I guess they call it like the God trip, or there's another term for it, but I can't. It's like soulistic. I can't remember the name of it, but sophilistic trip, and it's one of these common ones. And I mean, that alone just allows you to deepen my understanding of how we all are connected. We are, all of our conscious base reality is consciousness. And science is even, proving that to the, and more truth is going to come out by the moment. Talk about what truth is turning into as well too, because science is the old game, right? Where science can't Science can't prove what is real in this reality at the moment, not to the extent that we know it in our being, that we're experiencing it in these other dimensions, in these unseen fabric of reality. The fact that we can only see what 3% of reality, and that's just I think a low guess. And that when you take these substances, these plant medicines, you're invoking more of the true nature of reality. My friends, you're not hallucinating. You are seeing a truer picture. You're seeing more of what actually is truth. That's why clarity comes. That's why your heart opens up. That's more of our true nature, not our deprogrammed state with our limited senses, playing the game of walking to our awakening. Um, so yeah, in these trips, it really, it brought me to like unity consciousness, or that like original state where we're like just the one thing. It's like the egg story. I can't remember who told that story either, but where we're just this one being, and we have the cosmic bang, and we burst into everything, all that is, the fabric of reality, which is all part of our being. And all the plants and animals in different levels of density, and us being on the 3D density. But that all of our consciousnesses, again, like they're all connected, and this is where telepathy comes from, and I want to talk more about that too. Very interesting. And yeah, that it was just this experience of just being of just being alone, and that all of this is really just an illusion. And I mean, it's not because we have all of these other pieces, which all just, we're all connected of one, but of experiencing what that oneness was, and how it was, while obviously in a profound state of bliss with all of our ability, whatever, I don't know, whatever that is just, it was the utter loneliness, and that's what created the big bang for us to do have these experiences, I suppose. But it's one of these common trips, much like the Christ consciousness. And so what happens is, when these incredible, amazing beings like Christ, and who go and are able, and the Buddha, and Mother Mary, and all of these saints and yogis, and who are able to tap in through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, because it's not like one lifetime. We're do this forever until we reach these different states. Once they tap in and pierce this other veil, this higher level of consciousness, then other beings are able to reach that state too. And that a lot of people have that experience of Christ consciousness, and is really just a profound state of again, of oneness, of pure love, of like, oh my God, everyone's a piece of me, and I can't believe we're doing this to each other, and how could you ever hurt your neighbor? It's like it's an aspect of you. And I talked about that, I believe, in the earlier episodes, where I was running around and just like donating, giving away stuff, and I'm like, none of this matters, and just in love with everyone and everything. And and then to come back around, it's just like these like snippets, and it's not where we're going. And but it's I guess to and y- well, I don't know, to have those experiences, it's just one of the common ones. And the other one, and so I experienced the Christ consciousness one before, and but both in this night I experienced the unity one, and I experienced the Truman Show one as well. And then that happened 2 or 3 times after as well, where it's almost like it's just this feeling of like, of knowing. It's like this is all like, it's like there's another side, and it's like the higher density, and the angels and beings of higher worlds, and all the saints and everything like that, that are helping us lift us up. This is where we're praying to, and asking for those, tapping into their consciousness, and asking for those energies to lift us up, and to help us, and to guide our pathways. And that they're like waiting there at and it's like tapping into understanding that veil, and just like being like, okay, we're like, is everyone going to jump around the corner and going to be like, surprise, like you made it, like into this new thing. And that really feels like it's what we're going and where I thought the great change that we're going through, which again is another episode. But this, again, this huge wave of awakening where everyone's just becoming more and more consciousness, and even like our parents and grandparents understand the news is fake, and why Trump, again, I will talk about that as well. Why Trump is the president. I mean that I won't get into politics because I don't play any of those games or give that energy, but it sure did show everyone that the whole thing is a joke, and that it's a rigged system, right? I'll talk more about that and how all these events, including are leading us up to actually allow us in these things of shock, these waves of shock, where it's just like it's just waking everyone up. It's like we can't ignore it any longer. Like this is just that it's the thing isn't what they say it is, and that there's not really like a huge, there might be, again, I don't even want to get into that or give that energy because the game is changing. We're moving into the end of an era. And this is what all the yugas and the Mayan calendar and all of these ancient indigenous wisdom teachings kind of point us to, and these that were it's just cycles, right? We fuck around on earth for eternity. We don't die. We just reincarnate. But it's cycles of like going to sleep and doing stuff and then coming up and like, oh my god, the pyramids where we can move stuff with our minds and like build stuff and do crazy amazing things, but it's like no infrastructure there. And again, and then we go back to sleep, and then we go back, we're in the period we're in was we're went to work, and if we wouldn't have, but the benefit of these things, and not only just, I think, just working on our soul and being able to dig deeper into the shadow frequencies, and then be able to come back out of it and transmute it and make us, again, lighter and lighter and go into more states of bliss. But when we go to sleep like that, that we have, we work, and we had the industrial revolution, and now we have infrastructure. So now we have roads and planes and the internet and all these things to connect yourself with, these, which the internet is allowing us to have the information to be able to for us to be able to awake, because we can actually share the real information, and all the awakened beings, and everyone can share their truth and channel the information from the higher densities, and provide it to teach everyone else. And because again, we're all one thing, and we need all of us to kind of, we need to be able to transmute the certain level of the karmic energy, to be able to make these changes. And that's why, like, still figuring out time. That's a tricky one for me so far, but I haven't gotten deep into contemplating that. Although I've had an experience that I will talk about, the timelessness state where everything is happening everywhere all at once. And that's why they say, be here now. But it's one thing to say, it's a different thing to understand and conceptualize and to feel it and to live it. And even when you do, it goes like that. That's just part of the game, and what makes the thing the thing. Um, so that was cool. So yeah, the Truman Show is just like this thing of thinking it's just like everyone's watching you and everyone's on the show, and everyone's just waiting around the corner, and you can almost like I can feel it in my experience, my being. But uh, again, that's just one that's kind of a common one that's talked about. Very interesting that we can have all these common experiences, and I think they're just kind of like stepping stones of giving you of something. I think of where we're going and what we'll eventually experience, and leading us and giving us the seeds of like remembering who we truly are, and walking back home to the Garden of Eden. And yeah, so that was very interesting. So in this state of just like the loneliest I've ever felt. And I remember so I was, yeah, I walked, I was like, I need to like see someone. And this time, I was renting, my apartment upstairs to these two, like, just really super nice girls. And, pause for a second here. And yeah, and I just, So I just went upstairs and, knocked on the door and was just like, can I have a hug? I'm like just going, and anyways, and it was great because we had never really hung out before, but I'd really admired them, and they're amazing artists and just wonderful people, and just really cool. And it was one of these, yeah, one of these things. And that night was really, I was really grateful for that experience because it allowed me to work through a lot of different things. It's so funny to talk about this like stuff that now because it's comical, but even then. And so she's like, well, yeah. I'm like, do you want to hang, like, do you want to hang out, like, what are you doing? So we went down to my place, and yeah, she wanted to use my card. She's like, can I use your card to go get some beer? And yeah, and she's like, do you want anything? I'm like, no, I don't drink. She's like, well, how come? Because she thought I drank before or whatever. And I was like, well, no, I haven't drank in like 13 months. I was like, I used to, I can't dare do that. And this is years ago, and all of this stuff. And reality had be kind of been offering me it back. And I had mentioned before, I believe, that when I had this experience in the DMT realms, that they had kind of told me, they were like, if you take 1 year off of drinking, we'll give you everything you want, all your hopes and dreams. And when I hit that 12-month mark, I was so enjoying it, in the freedom and not needing it. And I'd been stuck in that for so long of just like, every night or whatever, even before that, growing up every weekend, and just that was a boring thing. And just loving the freedom and not having it. But ever since that kind of point, it was like I wouldn't think about it, or I wouldn't dare be like, no, I'm just going to keep going. This is great. But it just kind of kept knocking on my door. And she just almost like not talked it into me, but it was just like, she was like, well, what's the problem? She's like, well, you just can't have like a beer or two? Or is that like, she's like, you don't like it? I'm like, are you kidding me? I love it. I'm like, it was like my favorite thing in the world. It was like, especially, um, for me, I was an overthinker, and it allowed me to kind of unplug a little bit. But I enjoyed being able now to be able to do it through meditation and taking pauses and walks in nature and doing it in a much more healthy way. Um, but I have a lot to talk about alcohol as well too, and it's just part of my story, and I'm still figuring that out. And so whether it was a good idea or not, I was like, sure, like get me a craft beer, give me like some craft beer or something. I think she got me a case. And so I remember, and it just didn't feel right. And especially because I was just coming down the mushroom, like, no, I've come too far. I don't need this. But I wanted to symbolically get over because, right. Now I remember, because then there was this like fear. It was almost like, well, I can't do it because I'm scared of what might happen. Right. I don't want to lose what I'm doing and what I'm working on. But I also knew that like it did keep me a little more inhibited. And it did, and it's fun. It can be really fun when used responsibly. And and what I've been understanding and learning is high frequency alcohol, and what the different kinds are, and what the different types, and your way of consuming it very slowly and modestly, and how that can be used to get to different states of consciousness. And just like a plant medicine, if you're having like this amazing gin with like infused with botanicals, one like drink or whatever, or it can have benefits in very small doses, and then after that it's usually fleeting for the body. But in all honesty, it's like more so just like it's like dessert. I like to have, is the cake like great for us? No, but it is like it's really nice, really great for but it's different. Anyways, I'm still learning how to talk to. I'm just trying to be honest about it. And so I remember, I think I just took a sip, and then I poured it out, poured the beer, and then like there. And anyways, it's but and then we went up to her place because she was working on this song and wanted a guitar part, and just like a little whatever. And so I'd played guitar for like 10 years, but I'd never really learned how to like jam, and I was scared to do that. And I missed a part there. What was it? It was not only that the alcohol was fun. It was like I was missing part of my identity because it had been built into me for so long. And wow, that just kind of came through me. And so now I'm on another period of walking through kind of the same thing where it's been, am I going to go? I was contemplating going another year because here I come full circle where I did see some old stuff come up. And I won't get into that now, but it's just that having this awareness through this conversation is just a really like, do we want another round of that? Um, because it's so profoundly easy when you're going through these states of awareness and finding your personal power and what you identified with as your power. And that's being able to like eat and drink and do whatever the hell you want. But that's not divine masculinity. That's going into, weakness and into old habitual patterns. And that, your body is a vessel and that you want to treat it as kindly and as loving and as favorably as you can. And anything more than like, you know, a little bit of wine is probably not, I'm not sure, probably not very wise for the body. And, I'll explore that more because again, it's this thing of also not wanting to give it a bunch of energy, not worry about it. I just don't care about it anymore. And yeah, but it's still lingering of like, you still get asked, you want to, do you want to drink or something? The part of it's like, that was nice and it was fun. And not only that, but I'll talk more about it because it really was something that it's in other episodes we'll get into. But interesting to note for later for contemplations. And that, yeah, I'm going to keep this going. Well, we'll see a little farther. Um, and so, yeah, going up to play music and having again one of these other experiences where I just being able to freely play with her tapped into something else. And I think that's, and I don't even have to get into it, but it's interesting where I'm sitting there doing it and just tears are coming down my face and I'm not crying, I'm not feeling anything, but it's almost like tapping into a part of my soul where it's just like it's so happy that I'm able to like start creating with someone and get over these fears and that I do have all of this music in me and I've just been starting exploring that too, going back to an open mic and writing some music and I want to share that finally. And I've said that and it's again noticing that again that I always say any advice I ever give to anyone is always advice to myself. And I would say that, I've a friend who's just this incredible musician, but he doesn't like post his music or doesn't like play. I'm like, why? You're so talented and all this stuff, and but I can't compare myself with that. But when I really put it together, and when I finally found my voice when I got home and can sing, it's a different. Well, I can sing I can sing, and I'm trying to I've been humbled again time and time and time and time again, but sometimes I'm also a little too modest. Again, the fox and the paradox. Oh, I don't want to yeah, I don't want to steal that term from a dear friend of mine. A friend that I'm just getting to meet who's this brilliant man who's been helping me, yeah, having these wonderful conversations with. And the fox has been a very in the dream arcs. The fox is goes into the paradox of things and invites you to contemplate, in like gas station bathrooms and in like crowded supermarkets to like stop and do meditations and like to go to the slums. And it's like that. There's no, and again, this is why like India is such a paradoxical place because it's. I'll get into that when I talk about India. But so again, this is just wonderful experiences of really getting to dive into more of myself, and I know that there was a little bit more before I left, What else was I going to talk about? Just one second. Oops. Yeah. Oh, right. So I guess the other thing was in that same, yeah, the only other thing that was such a profound experience for me was, right, was this, I was telling her, I was just like filling her in about, some of these experience that I've been having and how I'm able to, was really tapping into something else and just learning about my family. And I talked about this too, how we don't have to talk about, you might have these grievances or like, my dad didn't like do this, or like my brother and my sister, cousin, my mom didn't, whatever, and hold these things inside of us in this pain. But as you heal yourself and you increase your awareness, then having these understanding of like, oh my God, this was like, and knowing that their parents and what they went through, and just having, as you can come to like have this self-love for yourself and forgiveness, then you can do that with your parents and your siblings, and just have this amazing respect. And like, and I'll talk more about, God, I can do episodes on my folks and my parents, but this one was really about my brother. And of course, siblings, we all have our, fights and whatever growing up, and we weren't that close for a period of time. And we're I love my brother more than anything, and he's an amazing man. And just like being able to be meditating and having these experiences and just having so much respect and love and admiration for him. And it was going through of this like growing up, I was always like, I was like the one who was like, oh, Jason's like, he's a CPA, he got all his, the stuff, he's got the house, he's all his success, and it's wonderful. And I looked like the shining star. And in school, I always just like, it was just easy for me and all this stuff. Where, I think Ryan had a little harder time in school, and, he's still super smart and, great. But I guess I kind of like, yeah. Like I was able to look at it and be like, holy fuck, it would have been annoying to have a little pissant brother like myself who was just kind of like, and again, like I was very like outgoing and wanted the attention. I wanted to be liked by everybody, right? That was part of my thing that I went through in my childhood wounding. And I might have talked about this already, I'm not sure, but, and yeah, just to understand how mature and humble and how like amazing he is with just everything that he's able to build and craft and take care of all of this land and do all this farming. And that didn't matter. It was like, I was whatever, like, who was making the money or the house or whatever, that he was happy and loved what he was doing. And that I had like, from the outside looking in, had this success, but I was miserable and I didn't like my job whatsoever. And that like, you know, and being like, well, who's right here and who has the success here? And again, the paradox of things, and that appearances aren't all what they seem. And why I had to give that up to go into this deep dive of myself, to be able to find out what these things are that I truly love and truly wanted to do. And even that was crazy and a hard experience, because as I was going through and doing this stuff and creating my own, like, so I ended up, back it up. But what else about, oh yes, right, about before I get into that. And so as I'm saying this and explaining stuff about my brother, and that like, because I had this experience of like, again, to the DMT, of like tapping into, again, this other side of like, again, the Truman Show, where like we're on the other side, everything's done, and it's like they're kind of guiding me to do this path, and I have to go through these wormholes and stuff, and it's whatever. It's doing my part of the puzzle piece. We're all working on this thing together, and that I'm taking this very interesting one. This is why I want to tell the story about it. And it's working with the plant medicines through these different dimensions of frequencies of dimensions through the different medicines. And then, learning how to do it with my consciousness, and then trying to tie it all back in together. But it was almost like that, like Ryan was actually the architect of the whole thing, and like he kind of envisioned the whole thing, and that but he wanted to pick me to be the one to do it and to have the like more glorious aspect. When I talk about glory, I'm just like, oh my God, after what I've been through, it doesn't I'm on my path returning to trying to come back to honor and graciousness, and all of this stuff. But again, giving myself grace for what I have been through and what I am doing, behind the scenes. And then as I'm saying that, it's like he was there and just reached down, and I'm saying how much I loved him and explaining it, and it just got like all of a sudden just wave after wave of like feeling his consciousness and feeling his love pour through me. And I just remember I was talking, and I just like kind of slid down on the wall onto the floor and just bawling my eyes out, because the amount of love I was feeling was just like I couldn't stand it. It's like my heart was exploding. From my brother was like, "Yeah, you think I love you?" It was like, "Here's this," and just like reached down, and was able to, he's like his higher self showing me how much he loved me. And yeah, and being God lover, for her to witness that and how, hold space for me that whole night, I'm, forever grateful. And yeah, that was kind of, I think, it. And then it was just really just, yeah, integrating all of these experiences, and getting ready and packing up and getting ready to go to Spain for the trip of a lifetime that once again changed everything. And there'll be many more of those, but I think that's it for now. And I hope that was, yeah, this is a pretty good, I felt like a pretty good warm up. So I hope whoever's ever listening here is going to enjoy it. And lots more of a story, and lots more wildness that I can't wait to get into. My vision of where we're going as a society and what I think we might be able to do to get there. So stay tuned. Ciao.